One of the hardest parts of running a tutoring business alongside real life isn't actually the time, it's the switching. One minute you might be dealing with family life, the school run, or other responsibilities that you may have. And the next minute, you're expected to sit down and make clear strategic decisions about your business, marketing, planning, strategy, recruitment. That mental shift can be surprisingly difficult. Hi, I'm Jane, and if you're a tutor who's trying to build a business that works alongside your life, not at the expense of it, then you're in the right place. You're listening to the Tutor Edit. And I started face to face tutoring in local libraries when my son was a baby. Over time, that grew into teaching international students online, and I now lead a team of over 60 tutors who support students worldwide. Each week, I share reflections from my own business and the conversations that I have with other tutors, not to tell you what to do, but just to pass on what I've learned through lived experience so that you can make intentional choices about a tutoring business that fits your real life. Now, something that I wrote about quite recently in my newsletter, and if you're not on my newsletter, make sure that you sign up using the link below, was this idea of switching between roles. For me personally, that often means switching from being a mum to a business owner, and that is quite difficult. It brings with it its own challenges because for so many tutors, our day isn't neatly divided into work and home. It's much more fluid than that. And for many tutors, it might look slightly different. For me, it's definitely the switch between mum and business owner. I find that quite difficult at times. It could be caring for family members. It could be managing another job if you're still in the classroom. It could be maybe you're studying for a different qualification or navigating some other responsibilities. But whatever those roles look like, the common thread is that we're often moving very quickly between very different kinds of thinking. You might go from dealing with something at home straight into a tutoring session. You may go from a tutoring session to then replying to parents. You may go from replying to those parents and then start thinking about marketing or planning. And those roles each require a very different type of mental energy. And certainly, I don't know about you, but sometimes I definitely expect to be able to switch between those roles instantly. But the reality is that our brains just don't always work like that. And often what we need is just a small moment of transition, a pause between roles, maybe a chance to reset before moving into the next part of our day or a different kind of job. Because without that transition, everything can start to feel quite blurred and maybe stressful. You might feel like you're never fully present in the one role that you're trying to fulfill at that moment in time. Maybe you're half thinking about work while you're with your family. Maybe you're half thinking about home while you're trying to focus on your business. And that is absolutely exhausting. Now, over time, I've found a few small things that really help support that switch. The first thing is called something that I call the big three. It's from a planner, my full focus planner, which has a quarterly big three, which is then broken down into a monthly big three, a weekly big three, and a daily big three. And all of these things link into the goals and plans that you have for that particular time. And it's just broken down into very manageable chunks each day. So each day I write down the three things that I want to achieve by the end of that day. And they are my priorities for that day, anything else that I am able to do as a bonus. And they feed into my weekly big three that I've set at the beginning of the week that then link into the overarching goals for the month and maybe the quarter, maybe the year. So even on busy days, I know that my focus is just on those three things. I'm still moving the business forward and it just quietens the noise a little bit more. As I've mentioned, I have a physical planner for this, which helps me to stay focused. Other things can work for you depending on how your brain works, but writing things down, particularly at my age, is helping me just make the day feel a lot more clear. And another thing that makes a big difference is having a shift in physical space. And this is something that I've tried very recently, but it's had a really big impact for me. I was personally really struggling to switch off because this office is at home, and there was a real blurred distinction with pretty much no boundary whatsoever between home life and work. I would just kind of find myself creeping in here whenever something happened, and then a couple of hours later I would still be here. I decided to be really intentional about a shift, and now I've physically shifted my work environment on some days. So I have some set business development days through the week, and I go to a co-working space to have those days. It's based at the gym, so that's quite handy. So I'll go to the gym to maybe do a class or go for a swim, and then I have my dedicated time in that co-working space 2 days each week where I can just work there without any interruption. And that change of environment really helps me because when I pack up my laptop at the end of the day, I then come home and work is finished, work is done. Now, it really signals to my brain that I'm in business mode when I'm in that space, and then I can have the journey home to decompress, and then arrive back home and be fully present as a mum. That's something that I was really struggling with over the last few months. And that's been very, very helpful. Now, you might not choose to go to a co-working space. It could be going to a cafe. It could be going to the library. It could be just moving to a different room at home. But that physical change can make switching roles much, much easier throughout the day. The third thing that I'm going to share with you is that having a shutdown routine has been really helpful. That's made a big difference for me, just to have a simple wind down, shutdown routine at the end of each day. And it could be something that works for you. For me, that looks like ticking off my big three. I write my list for the next day, and then I write down my one win for the day. And then I close my phone off, I close my laptop, and work is finished for the day. But that switch, there's always probably going to be some friction between the switch. And that is the nature of being a business owner, I think. Like, it is all encompassing, all consuming. But it could help you to implement some of the things that I have suggested in this episode, because the switch between roles is probably never going to go away. And that's what building a business alongside real life can look like. But those small routines can make that switch so much easier. Planning your priorities, changing your environment, and creating a really clear signal to your brain through a shutdown routine that signals the end of your day. Having those small transitions can maybe just help bring about a bit of clarity to stop those boundaries becoming blurred. And the switching between roles might always be part of this work, but small routines can make that switch feel much more manageable. Now, if you've enjoyed this episode, then please make sure that you subscribe and like for more support, strategies, and inspiration to help you grow a tutoring business that feels aligned and sustainable with the life that you want to create. I'll also put the link to my newsletter in the show notes, so that if you aren't subscribed already, then please make sure that you are, because I share all behind the scenes things that have happened and free resources for you there to help you stay aligned within your business. Thanks so much for spending a little bit of time here today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.